Hi, I'm Chris. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 2 of OCD Geeks.
And I'm Jack. Hi guys.
We hope you did enjoy last week's format. This week as well, we decided to keep going with an extra segment at the very end of the episode. So guys, make sure to stay tuned to discover what's all about.
I'm sure you won't regret it.
So make sure to subscribe to our channel and leave us a like or a review. And if you're listening to the audio edition, also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, your support is welcome in order to grow our channel even more and to deliver better and more contents in the near future. So thank you very much for helping us.
Thank you guys. So Chris, right now let's dive into the TV series and movies fragment.
Sounds good to me. So this week we decided to select a brand new series that is currently available on Netflix that is called Incastrati, or for those of you who are listening from outside Italy, it is called Framed, a Sicilian murder mystery.
Actually guys, the comedians who plays the main roles in this TV series are very famous here in Italy, especially for those viewers who enjoy watching television at evening, because they are Ficarra and Picone, famous worldwide hosters in the television channels, and actually they play a great and particular role in this mystery thriller series.
Basically, Ficarra and Picone are really famous and they made several movies that are well known in Italy, but this time it is the first Netflix original. The plot is quite simple. I would say that this is pretty much, an Italian crime comedy. It takes place in Sicily. Ficarra and Picone fix televisions. By coincidence, they witness a murderer scene. The plot will develop from there in crazy ways that you cannot really expect, but guys, the result is quite hilarious.
Yes, they are so funny and entertaining. Of course, I didn't expect that they could play detective roles. This series recalled one of my favorite German TV series called The Tatort, which is another international TV series that has to do with crimes and investigation. Actually, Chris, I found that they have great qualities and they portrayed the great acting.
Even the movies that they made before, they are really funny Italian comedies. So, I was not surprised about that, but I didn't expect to like this series as much as I did. Actually, it's just 6 episodes, so I was able to complete the series in less than 1 week.
That's great, yes, and that's right. You can watch it, guys, in a week or less.
Yeah, so this time, Jack, we were a little bit lucky compared to, international listeners, because this series came on Netflix Italia on the 1st of January. While, for those of you listening from outside Italy, it's currently available from this week. Even myself, I was kinda suggesting and recommended to international friends, but they just said, it's not currently available yet in our countries.
Yes, so we have to be careful not to spoil anything to all our international viewers.
I do hope that Ficarra and Picone will keep the partnership with Netflix in order to release even a second season in the future.
Yes, I hope the same as well. Even, I don't know, the collaboration for another movie would be great.
Yeah, so I'm not an expert by all means about Ficarra and Picone's movies, but I believe that some of them are actually dubbed in English, while in other I think you can still find the original Italian with English subtitles. Guys, Italian comedies are quite fun and a bit different compared to international comedy standards, so I will totally recommend you to give it a try. About this series, it takes place in Sicily. Actually, both Ficarra and Picone are Sicilians, so you will hear, for those of you who speak Italian, Sicilian accent, and that's quite interesting. It makes even funny funnier, the hilarious situation and adventures of the protagonist.
Yes, as happens many times, here in Italy, the dialect contributes to the great comedy and acting overall and entertaining story.
Yeah, we said many times about one of our favorite actors, Roberto Benigni. He is from Tuscany, like us. This time we are talking about a completely different accent. I believe that you can choose between watching the dubbed edition in English or keep the original Italian with English subtitles. The choice is yours, but I would strongly recommend at least trying listening with English subtitles.
That could be a particular experience, guys, and you could understand to like Sicilian dialect more than you can expect.
Yeah, about that I remember, Jack, that a couple of years ago Ficarra and Picone made a movie that is called Il Primo Natale. In English is translated as Once Upon a Time in Bethlehem. Have you seen this movie, Jack?
I haven't seen it, Chris, but I think I watched the trailer of it. I don't remember, but it doesn't sound new to me.
This time, for magic, they were able to travel back to the time when Jesus was born. Somehow a very fun but also profound story involving these two actors in the Holy Land back more than 2000 years ago and their effort to go back to the present days.
Yeah, sort of resembling Roberto Benigni and Massimo Troisi in Non ci resta che piangere.
Yeah, I didn't complete that one, but Benigni's movie are amazing, so I should definitely go back and finish it.
Sure,
not
please.
only that, but for example, Johnny Stecchino. Also, that one takes place in Sicily.
Yeah, that's right. Totally, you should finish watching Non ci resta che piangere because it's outstanding. The jokes and the funny scenes are beyond amazing.
It's quite fun because one of the main characters, he has a deep passion for crime TV series. Once this murder happens, he acts like he's like the main detective of his favorite series. So it's quite entertaining because most of us can relate, like we try to translate our favorite series somehow into our daily lives as well.
Yes, that's right. And one of the features that I think contributes to the great comedy of this series is that Ficarra and Picone find themselves completely out of context. They are daily workers that are projected in criminal reality that doesn't belong to them. So there are two worlds clashing.
Again, I would strongly recommend just to watch the pilot and give it a try, and I'm sure you won't regret it. So you are welcome to give us any insights or your opinion in the section comments down below. And Jack, I strongly recommend you to keep going and reach the end. Before starting our recording, you were telling me that beside Framed, you were watching a brand new Italian movie that, if I'm not mistaken, is still a Netflix product. Am I correct?
That's right, Chris. It's a great Netflix product. I didn't know about this movie. It was recommended to me by a friend. In Italian, it's called Quattro Metà. In English, Four to Dinner. It's an Italian romantic comedy directed by Alessio Maria Federici with Italian actors, especially the most famous Matilde Joly and Ilenia Pastorelli, because they mainly act in television. Ilenia Pastorelli herself played a great role in the worldwide famous movie Lo chiamavano Gigrobot.
I remember we chatted about Gigrobot a few episodes back.
Yeah, that's right. And Ilenia Pastorelli was the main protagonist of the movie. So it's quite famous for the viewers and well known. In this movie, For to Dinner, there is a couple in the center of Rome that decides to invite four single friends to dinner and try to make them match with each other. It's a very philosophical and deep movie about the power of choices and the hand of destiny in our lives. There are two perspectives at the beginning. It's a movie that resembles very much the acclaimed Sliding Doors that most of our listeners will know. In life there are so many possibilities and alternative realities in which things could go differently and develop in other ways. So it's quite surreal surreal in the end, but I would highly recommend anyone to give this movie a try because it's really heartfelt, and most of all is dedicated to Alessio Maria Federici's mother. It's a great homage to the mother of the director.
Sounds good. I was not familiar with this movie, but I will definitely check it out after your recommendation. So, Jack, shall we go on to the second segment of our episode?
I think it's time, Chris.
So, this segment is dedicated to gaming. Last time, you remember guys, we chatted about a game that is currently available on Steam that is called Before Your Eyes. This time, I just wanted to share what I've been playing the most these days. Also, Jack is going to share his memories about a well-known gaming franchise.
Yes, Chris. As you know, I'm not such an expert about video games, but there is one video game that shaped and transformed completely my adolescence. It's part of my heart right now.
So, about me, Jack, this week I've been playing again Assassin's Creed Valhalla on my Xbox Series X. Have you ever heard about the Assassin's Creed franchise, Jack?
I know there are many chapters of it and many adventures that you can play, but I didn't have the possibility to play until now.
So, you know, Jack, that Assassin's Creed is a series that started around the time we were high school students. I remember buying the very first Assassin's Creed. This is a franchise that is made by Ubisoft, one of the biggest gaming companies, well known for many titles, not only Assassin's Creed, but also like Watch Dogs or Far Cry and many more. Years after years, many chapters were released. Now there is a universe of games, but not only that, also like comics and novels, as well as a movie. So, you know, it's quite deep if you are interested in hearing about all the insights. I think that you can enjoy as well, because Assassin's Creed is a very historical series. Every chapter takes place in a different setting and historical time. For example, the first one took place in the Holy Land, while Assassin's Creed 2 took place in Florence. Another one took place in the ancient Greece, while the most recent one, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, takes place between not only Norway and England, but also France, if you count the expansion as well. It's something that I'm sure you can enjoy.
Sure, Chris. I know about Assassin's Creed, how great the cities are reproduced and made, how great the crossing of the streets was. A friend told me that cities like Paris or Florence are really well made, so I miss this part. I would like to give this game a try, just to walk around the streets of Florence to see how well depicted they were.
Yeah, I know you really love the classical culture, you know, like the ancient Greece as well as Latin. If you play Assassin's Creed Odyssey that takes place in ancient Greece, there is also a discovery tour. You find historical notes and information just running or walking around the streets of Athens, you know, making friendship with Socrates or Aristotle. So it's something quite unique.
Turns out you become a philosophy graduate.
Not something like that, but I'm sure that you can learn something historical from this series. These games are well known because they are long, but really long. So if you want to complete everything, you are going to spend there at least a couple of hundred hours. You are to explore a huge map and to find many secrets and side stories. Not even realizing it, maybe you can spend 50 to 100 hours in this kind of world.
I think I would get completely lost in this great world.
You are totally free to do that. You know, the beauty of open world games is that pretty much you are in charge on how the story will develop. So there is no pressure and you can enjoy the game your way. This year we didn't get a new Assassin's Creed because this one was released around the end of 2020. but the developers released throughout time a few expansions that basically extended even more the length of the game. Nowadays was released a brand new expansion that will expand by at least 50 hours the time that you can spend in this world. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I believe that in a few years there will be a brand new Assassin's Creed that will be more similar to live services game. I don't know if you are familiar with this concept, Jack, but pretty much live service games are experience that the developers improve and expand constantly. One of the biggest example is Destiny 2 that you can play both on Xbox as well as PlayStation. You get several seasons and every season will add unique features to the story with new characters, new places to explore. In the case of Destiny, there is a full universe to explore. You can play a live service game even from 5 to 10 years. It's not something that you are going to end quickly. It is possible thanks to the most recent technologies and also fast internet connections. It was not possible like 20 years ago by the time of the original Xbox or the PlayStation 2. I believe that is something that will be more and more relevant even in the upcoming years.
Yes, I think it's definitely a new border of video games.
If you're not an hardcore gamer, so you don't care about exploring and doing everything that the game has to offer, you know, some of these games, for example Destiny 2, they are free to start. If you want to explore more, you can still buy new stories or expansions in order to start and just see if the game is for you or not. You don't really need to spend anything. It's something that can be a big plus. You know, some of these games are also included into the Gamepass. I'm not sure if you are familiar with Gamepass, Jack. We can change the name to the segment to Telling Jack About the Gaming World or something like that.
Yes, we could name our channel How I Got to Know Video Games.
Yes, the Xbox ecosystems offer a plan that is called Game Pass that is available both on the Xbox as well as PC and also via cloud. You can access even if you have an Android or iOS smartphone. By paying a monthly fee, you are able to access more than 100 titles. You know, the Xbox titles added day one, so you can play the most recent games without any extra cost. Via EA Play, you can play many games. If you like soccer, you can play FIFA there as well. It's something that I totally recommend if you are an Xbox or a computer user. I don't know if you heard about this, Jack, but it was huge, the news that Microsoft bought Activision Blizzard in 2023. I think that Activision and Blizzard will join the Xbox family. This acquisition was meaningful for the gaming industry. In order to buy Activision and Blizzard, Microsoft spent around $70 billion. You know, if you're not familiar with all the games, Activision is well known for games such as the Crash Bandicoot series, as well as Spyro or Tony Hawk's, just to name a few, while Blizzard is well known for Diablo and World of Warcraft.
I know Diablo. I played on the PC when I was a child. I was terrified by it.
It's part of Activision, also the Call of Duty saga. Even that is always at the top of selling games all around Europe and North America as well. So it will be interesting to see how this huge investment will benefit us as gamers. But it is not something that will happen immediately. It will take, I think, think a couple of years to finish, but I definitely was happy and surprised to hear about it. We will see how things are going to develop. I'm really happy to be an Xbox user. I'm sure that the catalog in the future will be even more exciting.
Yeah, the premises are good.
Next week, Jack, I will tell you something more about gaming. By the end of this year, you will be an expert as well.
I think so, totally.
It's a bit like you did for me for movies. You know, guys, I don't have the same knowledge about actors and movies that Jack has. So I think that with this podcast we can learn even more. In the case of Jack, might be gaming. In my case, the Hollywood world. Guys, we are not alone, so you are part, as we said, of this community. So if you have any insights or ideas about anything really, like something that you would like us to talk in the near future, or maybe you have unique insights about any of the segments that we are talking about, we are always happy to hear from you and learn even more. We are looking forward to your feedback. So, Jack, at the beginning of this segment, you were telling us that you would like to share your experience with a very well-known gaming franchise.
Sure, Chris, I was referring to Final Fantasy, mainly one of the best games which I've ever played. It is Final Fantasy VIII. I remember when I was in high school, I was really looking forward to come home and start playing the PlayStation with this amazing chapter of the saga. Final Fantasy has incredibly entertaining stories. You can get a glimpse of every character's features and you can really get affection toward these characters because they are really so great portrayed. In my case, I was really imagining myself as Squall Lionheart, the protagonist of Final Fantasy VIII. I was involved by the style of playing and by the fact that you had, it was kind of a strategy games because you had to fight against monsters and enemies.
You know, Jack, I played most of Final Fantasies throughout the years. I remember that my first Final Fantasy was the original Final Fantasy VII. Unfortunately, the game was only in English. At that time, I was just an elementary student and I was not so familiar with English, so it was quite challenging to just keep going. I clearly remember Final Fantasy VIII and also Final Fantasy IX, that is among my favorites. In Final Fantasy VIII, you also needed to do some kind of test. According to the scores, you were able to get benefits and to pass the exam.
Exactly. You have many functions. It is not an open world like you said for Assassin's Creed, but you can really wander around and fight any kind of monsters to gain experience and new weapons, for example, that are really important in the story. If you get experience from the fighting, the more you go on with the story. But I also remembered I was really moved by the story a lot of times, so I wanted really to know what was gonna happen to these characters and how they would have interacted with each other. Really, it was like reading a book, an activity which I love.
Remember, Jack, that at the time of the original PlayStation, Final Fantasy box was quite big because it featured 4 different discs. So I remember, for example, finishing disc 1 and there was a message like insert the second disc. It's unbelievable for newer generations of players, but it's still in my memories. You know, Jack, that nowadays one of the most well-known Final Fantasy is actually completely online. I'm talking about Final Fantasy XIV that actually I've never played, but I know that is such an amazing game. The developers feature like every year main updates, so it seems like an endless world of adventures.
Yes, I played also Final Fantasy IX, which I loved.
Final Fantasy IX was actually in Italian. I remember that the main characters feature like Italian dialects. I remember there was a character who spoke like Naples accent. This game is still in my heart.
Yes, it was very popular. Somehow the chapter 9 was a little bit more childish than the 8, but that's quite subjective. Maybe for you guys was not the same. I know that Final Fantasy VII was one of the most difficult to play.
Actually, Jack, they basically recreate from scratch Final Fantasy VII and is currently available for the PlayStation system. It's called Final Fantasy VII Remake. basically they updated this classic story with nowadays graphics and systems of fighting. Beside that, Final Fantasy X was huge. It was the first Final Fantasy coming to PlayStation 2. I remember back in the days looking at the graphics of Final Fantasy X and thinking that this is the most beautiful game I ever seen.
Yeah, it was really surprising.
So guys, which one is your favorite Final Fantasy? Let us know in the section comments down below. Actually, Jack, I'm sure that many fans of the series are looking forward to the new chapter as well.
Yes, I should at first start playing the previous chapters and gradually coming to the 16th, but I don't know if I will ever be able to do that.
For the third section of the episode, we are going to chat about language and daily hacks. This time as well, we decided to dive deep into the learning process. I'm going to share a few of my favorite apps in order to learn Japanese, while Jack is going to tell you guys very unique and useful learning system.
Sure guys, I will start this time. I want to tell you about a way of learning which I actually discovered years ago based on a collection of books called Assimil. Here in Italy you can find it available in many languages, and it's an intuitive way of learning. For example, there are 100 lessons that you can study in this book. You should take as a student one lesson per day. For example, if you're a beginner, in 100 lessons you can get an intermediate level of knowledge, while if you're an intermediate speaker you can arrive to an advanced level. I use this way of learning for many languages. For German, before I took my courses in Germany. Right now, to study and to better my Swedish. I have a beginner level of Swedish, but thanks to this new way of learning I could get to intermediate. Only 10-15 minutes per day, but it helped me really a lot.
I didn't know about this system, but it sounds really interesting. I'm definitely going to check it out for my target languages. So I'm going to find it if it's available, for example, for Japanese or Korean, because it sounds very effective.
Yes, it's very effective indeed. It's really fast. Even if you don't have much time in the day, you can really get satisfied by it.
Yeah, for those of you like me who are learning Japanese, I'm going to share my favorite apps. Recently, I started to use Satori Reader. Basically, this app offers a selection of articles and stories in Japanese. You customize your experience according to your current level. If you are, let's say, beginner or maybe an advanced student, you can select the kanji that you already know as well as new ones. This app features translations in English as well as audio recording for all articles and stories. I believe that reading it's a key component of the learning process. You find new vocabulary, grammar items that you already know as well as new ones. With this app, it has, as I said, the audio recording. You can even check your pronunciation. You know, it's important if you want to sound like a native speaker. So this app is free if you want to try a few articles, but if you want to unlock all the stories and feature of the app, you need to pay a monthly or yearly subscription. If you are serious about your Japanese learning, I will definitely recommend it. One key component that drove my attention to this app is that it's made by the same author of the Human Japanese and Human Japanese Intermediate apps that are well known and available both for Apple as well as Android. These are interactive textbooks. The first one, if you are starting from scratch or if you just have a general knowledge of Japanese and you want to review and dive deep into the learning process, while the intermediate is meant if you already have a general knowledge of Japanese, I would say around the JLPTN 5, or if you completed the first Human Japanese and you want to continue your learning. I really like those. Not only they are going to tell you about grammar, kanji and Japanese writing system, but they feature also beautiful pictures as well as culture notes. You are going to get, for example, a grammar focus lesson, and the next one might be just about Japanese culture. So you take a break from the grammar and just enjoy learning more about Japanese culture.
I remember the Human Japanese app because you recommended once a few times back.
Even if you continue with the Satori Reader app, you can find extra lessons and credits regarding the first and the second Human Japanese. So you dive deeper into grammar and culture notes, even in the Satori Reader as well. So I will definitely recommend you. But if you just want to start from scratch a brand new language that is not necessarily, for example, Japanese or Russian in the case of Jack, I will definitely recommend you Drops app that is available both for iOS as well as Android. Thanks to this app, you can access, I think, that more than 50 different languages, and this one is mainly for learning vocabulary in a more interactive way, thanks to games or fun activities. It's really well done. It's meant both for absolute beginners as well as intermediate to advanced students. So you can select a topic that you are interested to learn. For example, readings in your target language, or maybe you have a passion for sports and you want to learn new vocabulary related to sports, travel, school, university, space, or other countries. It's really well done, and also it is constantly updated, so throughout time you find newer topics and languages.
It's an amazing tool to use.
Yeah, even this one, it's free if you want to use it for, I think, just 5 minutes per day. But again, if you want to unlock all the feature, you can get a monthly subscription as yearly. But there is also a lifetime plan that from time to time is discounted, so my advice is to keep an eye on that one, because it's really convenient in the long run.
Yes, seems a really great choice actually.
So, Jack, while we are waiting to our listeners' questions about language learning, why don't we close up the episode, this quite long episode, with the newest and last section?
Right, Chris.
So, this last section is called Album of the Week. Since both me and Jack have a passion for music and playing many instruments, mostly in my case is violin and in Jack's case is guitar, we have a big passion for music since we were high school students. Before pandemic, it was quite common to play together, cover songs. So for this segment, we decided to pick an album each, so one for me, one for Jack, just to share why we like this album so much. It can be a brand new album that we are discovering, as well as a classic album that we used to listen back in high school or throughout university. So, Jack, for the very first section of Album of the Week, which one did you pick?
Chris, I chose All We Know Is Falling, the first album released by Paramore back in 2005. Actually, I'm very affectionate to this album because it made me discover this band. Great music composed by Hayley Williams and Josh Farro remained in my heart. You know, Chris, back in the days I had my iPod, and when I went to the lessons at university, I had my headphones on, and every morning these great melodies of this track list played along. So I remember I could fly to the university listening to the notes of great songs such as Pressure, Emergency, Brighter. When I got back home, I took my guitar and tried to play covers of these songs. I was really hooked, and right now a lot of memories comes to my mind connected to part of my young adult experience. I think you can relate to this, Chris.
Yes, actually Paramore is one of my favorite bands as well. Especially for me, the very first albums, I would say up to Brand New Eyes, that is my favorite Paramore's album. You know, I really enjoyed that rock style. I also do appreciate the more pop turnout of the most recent album, After Louder, but the first albums, like not only All We Know Is Falling, but as I said, Brand New Eyes, and before that Riot, will remain in my memories.
Riot was so great, it brought Paramore to a new level of popularity because Misery Business was such a huge hit that was played by every radio and TV channel, even on MTV.
Even more success for a mainstream audience started when Paramore released Decode, you know, the soundtrack of the Twilight movie that was huge around 2010.
Totally, and I think they're gonna release a new album this year, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, even before that, Hayley Williams released a solo album last year or a couple of years ago, so you might want to check it out if you're missing Hayley's voice.
Yes, she also played with world famous artists, quite different to the punk rock style of Paramore.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember the song Airplanes. Hayley was singing the chorus of the song, while the other part was rap. So even that mix of Hayley's voice and rapping, I really enjoy that. I listen to it from time to time.
Yes, that tune was so cool.
Okay, sounds good. About my picks, this time, Jack, no surprise that I'm going to chat about an Enter the Haggis album that is called Whitelink. So, this is a 2011 album released by my favorite band that is called Enter the Haggis. For those of you who are not familiar with Enter the Haggis, they are a Celtic rock, but you know, that can be reductive to define just Celtic rock or folk rock band from Toronto in Canada. I started to listen to Enter the Haggis when I was a high school student, and I still listen to them even now. And actually, while I was a student in Toronto, I had the great opportunity to meet them and to listen a couple of their concerts, so I have great memories of that time. About this specific album, Whitelake, you know, I really enjoy this folk side, while other albums are more Celtic rock. But I would strongly recommend you, if you're not familiar with this band, you can easily find it on Spotify.
Yes, Chris, I'm not surprised by your choice because I know how much you love this band, and guys, we even talked about it in one of our very first episodes about music. I think it was the second or third episode of the first season, dedicated to music and to our favorite artists, and Chris mentioned Enter the Haggis. I listened to some songs and they're really an amazing band.
Yes, I remember, Jack, that there is, of course, the fiddle player Brian Buchanan. At that time in high school, of course, I played violin. Just hearing for the very first time violin played outside classical music in a Celtic rock band, I was so surprised and hooked by the sound of it. So that's why I want to dive deeper into Celtic music myself. You know, Jack, that once I was in Canada, I remember talking to them and they were so kind, just great guys, and I realized that behind great music there are great people as well. I remember chatting with Craig, the founder of the band. He was so kind to me and I still keep these precious memories.
I'm sure about it, Chris. It's great memory that will stay with you forever.
So, if you are interested in Celtic rock, folk rock in general, I would totally recommend it because from album to album, Enter the Haggis, they were able to stay faithful to their sound. At the same time, they introduce new elements each of every time. So every album sounds still like an original Enter the Haggis, but a bit different compared to the previous one as well as the next one. So listening to Whitelake is an unique experience compared to, for example, the amazing Casualties of Retails that is more on the rock side. Just give it a try and I'm sure you wouldn't regret it.
Cool, guys, try to follow our advices, and yes, as Chris said, you won't regret it because we gave a lot of information. We also are curious about which are your favorite bands and which kind of music do you like listening to.
So guys, as always, if you want to interact with us directly, you're welcome to contact us both on Instagram and Twitter at Chris_OCDGeeks as well as Jack_OCDGeeks.
You can also visit our website www.ocdgeeks.me.
As always, let them talk about freaks.
We stay tuned on OCD Geeks.